Assalamualaikum
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh. First of all, let's thank to Allah the Almighty who has given us the time so we can do our first isas with the title is UNIX. Before we start our presentation, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Muhammad Ghufran Tripa SYAVEYENDA.
My name is Muhammad Ramdhani ALZEIN.
My name is GAYATRI HISANAH.
We are from Group 8 and we want to tell you about UNIX. Operating system bring benefit to software and development software. Without as without as without as operating system, every application needs to include its own UI. As well, the comprehensive code need to handle it with the low-level functionality of the underlying computer. Component is a series contained in system in a computer operating system. Not all operating system have the same structure. The following are the constituent component of an operating system. There are first process management. A process is something that being run to run. It must require certain resource such as CPU, memory, and input or output equipment. The process management operating system has the following function. There are create and delete user process and system process, delay or continue the process, uh, provide a mechanism for process synchronization and communication, and the last provide a mechanism for handling deadlock. The second is memory management. Memory is a major element of a modern computer system. The main role memory is as a place to store data, address, and instruction that can be read quickly by processor, CPU, input or output device, and program. The memory management functions are to keep the memory section uh, in use flow. The second is determine what process must be loaded into memory when there is free space. The uh, the third is file system management. A file is a collection information in accordance with the purpose for which the file was created. Usually, file represent program and data. Activities related to file management are file creation and deletion, directory creation and deletion, support file and directory manipulation, mapping files to secondary storage, and the last is backing up to permanent storage media. The fourth is in or output system management. Usually, the out or in system provide a common driver file system management. For example, it's the user present to read files. Example, the CD, ROM, and flash disk. Its components are buffer, spooling, and driver. The fifth is secondary storage management. Storage on a computer is usually temporary and limited in the number. Therefore, it requires secondary storage that can store larger data as a backup of main memory. Example of secondary storage are hard drive, flash disk, and other. Uh, the sixth is protection system management. If a computer runs many different processes simultaneously, protection is needed from other activities. Protection is useful managing access programs, pro process, process or user from the restricted resource, increasing the ability to trace errors between subsystem component and manage user to access computer system.
The seventh is network management. A distributed system is a system that has multiple processors that do not share memory. Each processor has its own writer. The processor communicates over network connectivity. Example information sharing method on the internet. 8. Command interpreter system. The operating system waits for instruction from the user. Programs that read instructions that interpret control statements are commonly called control card interpreter, command line interpreter, and UNIX shell. What is UNIX? UNIX is a popular multi-user multitasking operating system developed at Bell Labs in the early 1970s. Created by just a handful of programmers, Unix was designed to be a small, flexible system used exclusively by programmers. Due to its portability, flexibility, and power, Unix has become a leading operating system for workstations. Historically, it has been less popular in the personal computer market. Next.
Ini udah.
The development history of the Unix operating system. The emergence of Unix actually started with a project called Multics. However, due to delays in 1969, the project was terminated when it was deemed that it could not be complete on time. But in the same year, two Multics researchers named Ken Thompson and Dennis Ritchie planned to continue the Multics project which stalled and was replaced by the name Unix. Unix was created or remade using the C programming language by a man named Dennis Ritchie. For the information, that C language is the first programming language that is recognized that is still used today. In the following years, many additional features were created with the aim of further enhancing the Unix operating system, until finally AT&T launched a commercial Unix operating system under the name Unix Free System. Unix operating system features. First, multitasking and portability. The main features of Unix include multi-user, multitasking, and portability capabilities. Multiple users access the system by connecting the two points known as terminals. Several users can run multiple programs or processes simultaneously on one system. Unix is a high-level language that is easy to comprehend, modify, and transfer to another machine, which means can change language codes according to the requirements of new hardware on your computer. Second, the kernel and the shell. The hub of a Unix operating system, the kernel manages the applications of peripherals on a system. Together, the kernel and the shells carry out the requests and commands. We uh, communicate with our system through the Unix shell, which translates to the kernel. When turn on your terminal, a system process starts that overlooks your inputs. When we enter our password, the system associates the shell program with your terminal. The shells allow you to customize options even if you are not technically savvy. The Unix shell is a program that gives and displays your prompts and, in conjunction with the kernel, executes your commands. Third, files and process. All the functions in Unix involve either a file or a process. Processes are executions of programs, while files are collection of data created by the user. Files may include a document programming the instruction for the system or a directory. Unix uses a hierarchical file structure in its design that starts with a root directory, signified by the forward slash. The root is followed by its subdirectories, as in an inverted tree, ends with the file. Fourth, list the version of Unix.
Ada empatnya. Oh, list version.
One fourth.
Gue kira tuh.
Ah,
Kaget ya.
enggak.
Ya udah. Baru marah.
Mulai lagi. List the versions of Unix. There are many different versions of Unix. Until a few years ago, there were two main versions. The line of Unix release that starts at AT&T. The latest is System P Release 4, and another line from the University of California at Berkeley. Some other major commercial versions include Sun OS, Solaris, SCO Unix, AIX, HP or UX, and ULTRIX. The freely available versions include Linux and FreeBSD. Many versions of Unix, including System 5 Release 4, merged earlier AT&T release with BSD features. The recent POSIX standard for Unix, like operating system defines a single interface to Unix. Although advanced features differ among systems, you should be able to use this introductory handbook on any type of system.
Their operating system, Unix, have its advantages and weaknesses. One of the advantages is Unix is free to use for everybody and have a good portability, so this OS can be easily adapted to other computer. And the most important, Unix is very stable, unlike any other operating system. And of course, this operating system is not perfect. There is some flaw in this OS. First, it is difficult to use for ordinary user because the UI is not very friendly and it requires a pretty large amount of memory to install. And the most unfortunate in this OS is have less appearance, unlike Windows or Mac OS, making this OS experience not very enjoyable for casual user. The structure of Unix in the making of operating system, the system need a structure like any other OS. Unix has its own structure. The Unix operating system consists of a kernel layer, a shell layer, and utilities and application layer. These three layers create a portable, multi-user, multitasking operating system. There are multiple versions of the OS. Every version has the exact same structure. And the architecture of this operating system is four-layered. It consists of hardware, kernel, system called interface or can call it shell, and application, libraries or tools, utility, etc. The kernel controls the hardware of the computer and resides at the core of the architecture. System call acts as the interface between the kernel and the other libraries. These libraries include general function and built on top of the system call shell. This is a special application that provides an interface to the other application of the architecture. And every OS obviously needs to have file system to be usable by the user, and Unix file system operating making all the files are organized. These directories are organized into a tree-like structure called the file system. Files in Unix system are organized into multi-level hierarchy structure known as a directory tree. At the very top of the file system is directory called root, which is represented by a slash. All other files are descendants of the root. And one of the most important of the component in OS is memory management. Like other OS, the goal of memory management in Unix is to keep track of which part of the memory are in use and which part are not in use, to allocate memory to process when they are needed and deallocate it when they are done. Unix memory management scheme includes swapping and demand paging. Program will be placed into a memory during execution. However, a large program will be divided into small pieces and loading the pieces as they needed. Overlays will replace the new piece with the program which is unused. Unix is using this technique to ruin a new program by fork and running process, which is also known as fork exec. It has been explained previously that Unix operating system is classified as multi-user and multitasking. So the purpose of multi-user is that it is possible for several users to use it at the same time. Meanwhile, multitasking is the inevitability of features to run process or program at the same time. In addition, the Unix operating system is also classified as portable. This allows you to run on other computer systems or even on small types of computer. Another convenience that user of the Unix operating system can get is when accessing and organizing any information or data they have. In addition, there is a utility function, namely adjusting the program to every need or desire of the user. So, the conclusion of this presentation about UNIX, UNIX is a portable, multitasking, multi-user, time-sharing operating system originally developed in 1969 by a group of employees at AT&T. The power contained in the computer system and provide its set of services to the user so as provide convenience and comfort to the user as well as the utilization of computer system resource. Unix system has parts such as boot mechanism, shell, resource allocator, handler, driver. Apart from that, the operating system has several functions and purposes. And the suggestion about this presentation, this presentation is the beginning of the learning process about operating system, especially Unix, so that the next opportunity will be better, both in terms of discussion, explanation, and writing that have not been achieved. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.